What's up, fruitful investors? Today's video is going to be a step-by-step guide on how to do a duplex conversion properly. This is by far a question I get asked the most from newbie investors and sophisticated investors. So I'll be going over the step-by-step process on how we do it. I'll be talking about my specific area of Kitchener-Waterloo, Ontario, Canada, of what are the rules and the bylaws, etc. However, don't be afraid. These rules and bylaws are almost unanimous across all of North America, with little tweaks here and there, but generally they're all the same. So the first thing we want to make sure, this is the biggest mistake that most investors make. Before buying a property that you want to duplex to a convert to a duplex, you want to make sure that the zoning already allows for a duplex conversion. So the zoning here in Kitchener-Waterloo must be an R2 at least or more. So R3, R4, R5, R6, it goes up. There's different variations as well. Multi-use 1, multi-use 3, those also allow duplexes. But generally, the zoning we're looking for is an R2. This is the most popular one in my area that will allow for it. If you buy a property that is zoned just residential single family, it is going to be a nightmare for you to turn that zoning to a duplex zoning, and it might not even be allowed because what you have to do is called a minor variance. At least that's what it's called in my local area. So you have to apply to get the zoning changed, and that means you have to get all the neighbors around you to vote on it in a community meeting to see if they will allow for it. You have to pay upwards to $10,000 to change the zoning. It is a nightmare. You're better off just not buying a property at all. This is the mistake that so many real estate investors make because they do not work with a real estate investment savvy realtor, which is number 2. I'm just gonna put savvy realtor to save space, but you must make sure that the realtor you're working with is one that specializes with real estate investors, and preferably they have more than 10 investment properties themselves. If they do not own 10 or more investment properties, it pretty much means that they're not motivated, they're not legit, they're not real estate investors. You want someone who's obsessed with real estate investing because they know all the rules. They've done this before over and over again. The amount of duplexes I've converted myself and with clients is too many to count. I've gone through this whole process so many times, I know it like the back of my hand, which is why I want to share this process because it's a question I get all the time. How do I duplex a property? So I'm gonna go through it really quick here. But you really want to work with a realtor that does this on a daily basis. So questions you can ask, I have a ton of videos on my YouTube channel about this, but ask them how many properties do they have, number 1, and do they work solely or primarily with real estate investors? For example, for me in Kitchener-Waterloo, I only work with real estate investors. That's it. I do not sell mom and dad's house with the white picket fence. I only do this and invest in properties for a living. So I do it all the time, full time. I also, at this time, making this video, I own 19 rental properties. So you can tell I'm obsessed with this business. I'm right into it. So make sure the zoning allows for it. It's a very simple check. When you see a property you like, you just call the city, you say, hey, I'm thinking about buying 123 Main Street. What is the zoning on the property? Don't tell them what your plans are. Just ask, what's the zoning on it? They're gonna tell you R2. Perfect, hang up the phone. Now you know that you can actually duplex that property. Start working with a realtor that also specializes with investors. That's number 2. Number 3, so once you buy the property, you get a contract done, you firmed up, you close on the deal. Even before you close on the deal, you want to do this. You want to make drawings, so basically blueprints of your proposed duplex conversion. So you're about to close on the property, you do all the drawings. I normally do them myself because I have a carpentry background. I used to do it in my schooling days when I was a carpenter, and I like doing it as well. However, you can hire this out to an engineer or an architect or just someone who draws plans for cheaper. And it's typically about $1,000 to draw the plans. So you want to propose to the city what the basement apartment will look like, or if you're adding a unit on top, etc. What is the unit going to look like? So you just draw plans, basic floor plan where the bathroom is going to go, where the windows are that you're going to enlarge, etc. So you basically want to make it up to code. So if you're working with an investment savvy realtor, they'll work with this, they'll work on this with you more closely. Or if you just hire someone to do the drawings for you, they'll know exactly where the windows have to go, how big they have to be, where the smoke and carbon monoxide have to be, etc. They know all of that and where to put that for your proposed drawing. So once this drawing is approved, you're good to go. So it normally takes, in my area, 5 business days. So we give the drawings, 10 business days. And when we give the drawings, they approve it, we're good to go. The next thing you wanna do, once it's approved and before you start renovating, this is a big one. This is something that a lot of investors make, that's a huge mistake. Before you start working on the property, you've already closed on it, drawings are accepted, you call and you order a pre-inspection with your specified building inspector. Because here's the thing, every building inspector has different wants and needs up to codes, which makes no sense because the code should be the code, should be the code. However, every inspector is different. So we've brought inspectors in to a property where the basement was already finished, let's say, and they said, yeah, the drywall that's already up there is good to go. Just do these little things and we're good. I've had other inspectors come in where the basement was finished. They came in and said, rip everything out. I want to see everything from scratch and start over. So it depends. So if you started the renovation and then you called for your first inspection, which would be framing, which I'll get to in a sec, you've made a huge mistake because they'll tell you, no, take everything down. Take everything down. I want to see what's behind it, etc. Where's the plumbing, etc. So make sure you call a pre-inspection with your inspector because they'll tell you exactly what they want. Because the inspector that you're assigned is the one that's going to follow through the whole project and give the final stamp of approval. So they must know what you're doing and like what you're doing. The fifth thing you want to do after you get the pre-inspection, now you started the work, you've got the okay to do the work, you want to call your other inspections as needed. So do not forget this as well. Some investors starting out, some newbie investors, will just keep renovating and finish it and won't call the inspector until the very end. That's a huge mistake. So the order of the inspection calls you will need are number 1, framing after your pre-inspection. And if you have foundation issues, there'll be one ahead of this, but generally your first call is framing. Your next one is your plumbing rough-in. I don't know if you can see these, but just listen. Plumbing rough-in. The next up will be installation. So now that the plumbing and electrical rough-ins are done, which the electrical, by the way, is its own separate thing. We call that an ESA inspection, so Electrical Safety Authority. That is a separate entity here in Ontario from the building code and from the duplex process. So while your main inspector will inspect your plumbing, they do not inspect the electrical. You just give them an ESA certificate at the very end and they're happy with that. So they're not really inspecting the electrical, but they'll be looking for things generally. Next thing you want to do is call for your drywall inspection. So after the installation, they're approved, you drywall it, they come back because we have some fire separation to do with the units or some certain drywall materials we have to use. They want to make sure you use the right ones. The next step after that is the final plumbing. So once the plumbing is, so now we're nearing the end of the project. Drywall's done, they've already approved it. Now you put in all the nice, cool looking stuff, the floors, the trim, the paint. You put your sinks in, your countertops in, your dishwashers. They come back at the end of that. They make sure all the plumbing works, that it drains properly, that it was vented properly. So they'll do a quick check. Some of them will do a quick check to see if it actually drains within a decent amount of time. And then your last inspection is called a final or occupancy here in Ontario. And that is the final. You're done, everything, plumbing's been inspected. Now you're done, the trim is on, the doors are done, it's all done. And they come in and make sure that say, yes, it's all done, it's nice to live in, it's safe, and then you get stamped for a legal duplex, which adds a ton of value to your property. I made another video recently about the benefits of doing a duplex conversion and owning one. You get a ton of equity because you're changing the use of the property. You're jacking up the value of that home. So it's a great investment, but this process scares a lot of people because they're not really aware of it. It's not advertised anywhere here where I am anyway in Kitchener in Ontario. I don't think it is for most areas. They don't really give a step-by-step guide, which is insane. So that's the reason why I want to do this video. So that in a nutshell is basically the 5 steps you want to do. I'll just go over them really quickly. What do we got here? Number 1, make sure the zoning allows for a duplex. Number 2, work with a savvy investment realtor. That is a must on all properties that you buy for investing, but especially true for a duplex conversion because they've done this before. You wouldn't believe how many times people come up to me and they use a different realtor in my area to buy a property because they haven't met me yet or whatever. And then they say, Matt, what do I do about this window size? What do I do about this? And I'm like, man, if you just would have used me as your realtor, I would have answered all of these questions. Now you already own the property. It's not zoned legally. The windows aren't gonna work. It's like gonna cost $30,000 more than expected, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Please use an investment savvy realtor. Number 3, you wanna make the drawings of the property, submit them, get them approved. Most times you can draw them yourself. If you're pretty savvy about drawing floor plans, go ahead. It saves you $1,000. Doesn't take that long either. Number 4, call for the pre-inspection before you even start doing any work with your designated home inspector. Number 5, call all of the inspections in their specific order. It's typically framing first, plumbing, rough-in, insulation, drywall, final plumbing, and then final occupancy. There'll be a couple more in there if you're doing like a major project, but that's basically the 5 main inspections you gotta do. So here's some things to look out for on top of the step-by-step order. So what you wanna do when you're converting a duplex is always, I wanna highlight that, always split the hydro. Again, a lot of people come up to me and they duplex the property without working with me, and I ask them, did you split the hydro? And they say no. It's like, you don't understand how more valuable that is to an investor who wants to buy it later and for your pocketbook when it comes to cash flow. We don't wanna pay for hydro, especially here in Ontario where the rates for hydro are going up and up and up every single year and rents aren't because there's a rent cap. Pass that expense on to them. It is a very easy thing to do. Your electrician's already in there making holes, making a mess, putting in the basement apartment. Might as well make a mess upstairs too and split the hydro. It takes like 1 or 2 extra days. It is definitely worth it. The cost to split hydro for a basic bungalow conversion here in Kitchener is generally around $7,500, I would say, for an average duplex conversion. That's how much it's gonna cost to do everything. Split the hydro, make the new unit, etc. But when you do that, this instantly adds a minimum of $15K to the value of the property. Nobody wants to pay hydro when they have tenants. So if you do this when you get in there and you wanna sell it right away or down the road, it is so worth it. You almost double the value of what it costs to do it. So one thing to note is that. Next thing to note is try and avoid bad contractors. Like with any investment property, but specifically with a duplex conversion, this is a very large project. Typically takes about 2 to 3 months on average for these type of projects. A lot of things can go wrong when you're using a bad contractor. I got stuck with one during a duplex conversion because my main contractors were busy on our other projects. And oh my God, it was a nightmare. The inspections were failing after failing after failing because these guys were idiots. I was getting so stressed out and angry at them. I had to bring my crew back in, fire these guys, and then finish it right. But it was more money and a big pain in my ass. So you wanna hire good contractors, especially when you're doing this. Again, if you're working with an investment savvy realtor like myself, I already know the good crews. I have the good crews. You can have my crew. So really work with investors or investment savvy realtors on that. Ask other investors in the area who they use for contractors. The next point you want to do is understanding the codes in your area. So here in Ontario, the codes are pretty specific in terms of other areas. We're pretty harsh on codes and how things must be done. You have to know them. For example, what do we have to do for the ceilings for fire separation, right? It has to be rock solid fire insulation, resilient channel for sound vibrations, 5/8 drywall for fire separation. Again, it is very specific. We have to caulk certain joints so the fire can't go to the next unit, etc. There's a lot of things you have to know. So if you're gonna do a duplex conversion, become the expert. Read what it takes to duplex a property, what they're looking for, etc. The more you do these, the more you'll find out because the inspector will say, you missed that, do that, and then you'll know, okay, next time I can't do that. But you're better off learning these things, or again, I keep going back to this, self-plug, work with an investment savvy realtor. They'll tell you what you gotta do. They've done it before. So the last thing you wanna look out for when you're doing a duplex conversion is use quality materials. Again, this is something we should always do as real estate investors, just to have a nice property, attract some good tenants, but especially because now we're going into multifamily territory. So what comes with multifamily properties typically? a lower quality tenant generally, right? So more wear and tear. You have 2 tenants instead of 1. They're using the pipes, they're using the showers, using the washer and dryer more, whatever. Multifamily tenants are typically a little rougher on properties than single family tenants. So you want to use quality flooring. For example, I always use a vinyl laminate flooring. It is indestructible, literally. It's a commercial grade flooring, but it's still super cheap, looks amazing. If you see all of my before and after renovations on my channel, I'll link one somewhere around here. You can see one. It looks really good and it's super high quality. It's almost impossible to scratch it, to ruin it. So very durable, waterproof, mold resistant. I could literally have a flood in my basement and the flooring will still be cool. So that's especially what you want to do when you're doing a basement unit. You want to use water resistant and mold free flooring. We're also using tougher appliances, etc. We're using good quality materials because we don't want to be going back to the property every 3 months to fix something, our tenants getting mad, etc. We want to set this on autopilot, renovate it top to bottom, get a higher valuation, refinance that property, and go on to the next. I talk about that strategy a lot on my channel, but we want good quality properties. I can't say that enough. So that's the end of the video. That's how we do the duplex conversion process, at least here in my local area. But generally, this is how it is across all of North America in most places. If you like this video, if you learned anything, please click like right below. It goes a long way to get these videos to get more views so I can help more people like you invest in real estate. I'll see you in the next video.